When Tyler Henry initially showed up, he looked like a phenomenon on television. A teenager who said he could. Suddenly they find themselves speaking to the dead. Him sitting opposite from Hollywood. Celebs sending messages that left skeptics slack-jawed. His tranquility, personality and uncanny observations immediately made one of the most renowned psychics. Media in America. But millions of witnessed him assist others in reconnecting with. Very few people lost loved ones. Realized how much suffering he had already encountered in his own life. The narrative of Tyler Henry's success is full of sorrow, illness, loss, and secrets that would shape him for a long before the celebrity had ever came. The kid who prophesied death. Long before the television cameras followed. Tyler Henry was only a quiet boy growing up in Hanford, California. An only child, raised by his parents, Teresa and David Collowan. His childhood appears to have been fairly typical. Like most kids in the San Joaquin Valley, where his formative years were affected by school rituals, family dinners, and the quiet beat of a little town. In those early days, nothing suggested that he might one day become one of the most famous psychics in Hollywood. Tyler's world started to alter. Was approximately 10 years old. One morning he woke with a peculiar feeling that anything was wrong. It was trained using data up to October 2023. Not a dream, and it was not what he heard from no one else. Rather, it sounded like a sudden and overpowering. Make sure that something awful was soon to occur. Tyler later called it a form of knowledge that occurred to him. No reason. No reason. But at the time he did not know what that meant. As the feeling grew stronger, he trying to explain it to him. Mom. She sat in their home, and Tyler said to her that he thought his grandmother was gonna die. To Teresa, the comment sounded strange and scary. She thought her son might be easily misconception or misperception of something. A sensation he could not define. She sought to soothe him and go beyond the time. Then the telephone rang. In the next, Tyler's father was at the other end. Shocking news. He had only just seen Tyler's grandmother dropped dead. Surprisingly, the timing was so immediately that Tyler had said, tough to ignore suddenly. What had sounded like a child's odd comment now seemed to be something quite more disturbing. It wasn't for Tyler empowering. It was frightening. He hadn't wanted to forecast anything. And obviously he did not wish to be right about something so awful. But the encounter raised a question which would plague him for the rest of his life. If it wasn't a coincidence that moment, exactly what transpired inside his brain? Over the next couple years, Tyler started seeing more impressions that just felt weird. Sometimes feelings came over him, linked to folks he'd just met. Other times he'd give information regarding a relative who died of someone that he'd never been told before. He kept these events secret at first, primarily to himself, not certain if anyone else would take his word for it. But on entering his teenage years, the more difficult it was to ignore what was going on. Pals started to question him. People in his community got curious about the shy youngster who sometimes felt like knows stuff he should not know. Tyler Henry didn't set out to be a psychic medium. For in those very early days, he was still trying to understand his own experience, but the moment that begins with his death. Granny had already unlocked a door that could never be totally shut. And as Tyler was about to learn that abilities would have consequences, he never thought that an offering that made him becoming the outsider. When Tyler Henry walked in his teen years, the weird began. Childhood impressions increased in strength and frequency. What is? Having once felt weird and perplexing moments began to mean something. Appeared to be almost continuous. By that time, about 16, Tyler had started providing read to people around him daily. Hamlet in the San Joaquin, California Valley. Word spread through town. If there was a teen who could tell the lives of people who somehow had long since died, some persons were attracted to it. Others were most uncomfortable. Many people, teens, high school is already an challenging climate to adjust to, can feel like the most essential issue in the universe. For Tyler, it was almost fitting that became not possible. His peers started seeing him as weird or eccentric. Some pupils avoided him altogether, uncertain to comprehend his strange power. Others laughed in his face, thinking he was lying or trying to obtain attention. The situation was more complex. Tyler was getting older. Among a group of conservative Christian. In that milieu, the notion of connecting with the deceased was very controversial. Some thought his ability might be a gift of the spirit, and some saw it as a more sinister thing. Some in the community members even said he was maybe associated with the experience of wicked or unnatural item. The teenage life that followed was full with seclusion. Later, Tyler revealed that middle school and high school were some of the years of his life, since he was trying to figure out two things at the same time: what his skill was about, and why it's so many people uncomfortable. Instead of becoming, he had pals who cared, who supported. Often found himself walking the rumors, doubt, and bullying. But in the process, those same years, a different painful experience would form him differently. A deeper level. Tyler grew close as a teenager. Connection with a lad, Terry. Their connection soon developed into something more relevant than the typical teenage friendship. Tyler would subsequently remember Terry as his first love and one of the most crucial persons of his young life. The two of them spent several hours together, sharing the type of conversations and emotional intimacy only teens falling in love for the first time really get it. But Tyler started having something creepy about Terry. At one point, he got a strong sense that Terry's childhood brain sometime cancer would return. Such that it was felt that it scared him. Instead of telling Terry about the fright, Tyler did something that would haunt him for many years ahead. Unable to face the thought of losing someone he cared about so much, he started to pull back. Slowly. He then admitted he shoved Terry, for he had tasted the foretaste. Could be true. Years after, the unthinkable happened. Terry's cancer came back and he died away before they reached maturity. The defeat devastated Tyler, but the guilt made it considerably more difficult to digest. Often he thought of the painful choosing to stay away from Terry before he died. even though he was striving to effectively defend himself emotionally, left him with a sense of having abandoned the one he loved while the toughest period of his life. It was one of the first times Tyler sought his power did not just make others feel comfortable. Sometimes it made him hold information that was impossible to live with. And his life kept moving on toward national fame. The emotional significance of those experiences would only increase. Heavier. 19 and famous. And the pressure that went with it. By the time Tyler Henry was getting adulthood, the strange reputation he'd had. Construction was already underway in his hometown, extending far beyond the San of California. Joaquin Valley. It began with calm readings for friends and neighbors, slowly turned, becoming something far bigger. Individuals who had never met him started contacting out, thinking he could do the same sort of texts he had sent to other people. At the age of 17 and 18, Tyler was doing almost readings daily. That rising interest quickly found its way to Southern California, where the entertainment sector is looking for amazing tales. Producers and talk shows got interested about the young clairvoyant who showed up, capable of giving very intimate information on the loved ones of strangers. Tyler soon began to get invitations that would alter totally his life. One of the key turning events came when he guest starred on an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Tyler called in while on the show with members of Kardashians. Memories of their late father Robert Kardashian Sr. died years ago. The emotional moment went viral fast throughout the web, introducing Tyler Henry had to millions of spectators. Never heard of him before. That look opened the way for anything bigger. Shortly thereafter, the E! Network provided him with his own TV show, Hollywood Medium, with Tyler Henry. What made the incident extraordinary was Tyler's age. The series was just 19 years old when he premiered, putting him right at the center of a planet most teens could not fathom getting around. The program immediately became one of the most popular talked about paranormal shows on television. Celebrities queued up to take opposite the young medium with the expectation of claimed he was able to deliver communications from dead relatives. Some came with doubts, some came with curiosity. Yet many seemed obviously shocked by the information Tyler provided in the readings. The show has over the years produced multiple viral moments. In one, Tyler warned Megan Fox about reading severe problems in her relationship with Brian Green Austin. In another emotional session he assisted, Jaleel White reflects on memories of his old Family Matters co-star Michelle Thomas, who passed much too soon. Moments like these assisted Tyler's build the most famous standing psychic medium of his day. The show became hugely popular virtually overnight. After the first season premiered, Tyler showed he had taken up the job. 175,000 from those wanting to book requests private readings from him. Demand was so high that it became impossible for him to answer everybody. The waiting list is said to have grown over time, grown to be hundreds of thousands of names. From the outside, the success appeared nearly impossible. A adolescent who'd had trouble fitting in at school after now one of the most recognizable people in paranormal TV interviews. Live events and public appearances began. Tyler quickly filling up his schedule and become a regular fixture in entertainment media. But fame also brought a different sort of pressure. Most young people at 19 are still choose who they want to be. But now Tyler was called on to carry the emotional baggage of people's grief of everyday life. Many of the celebrities who sat opposite from him were coping with painful memories of lost parents, mates, or brothers and sisters. Tyler often found during his readings themselves responsible to furnish messages that could open up deeply emotional scars. The work took significantly more than just repeated impressions. Tyler had to deal with the reactions of individuals, sometimes crying, incredulous or startled. At the same time, he had to be calm enough to know the symbolic pictures and emotional impressions that he thought was getting. The emotional impact of this work was incorporated into his rapid, ordinary lives. And as the show went on, Tyler Henry was becoming more popular, starting to get something just disturbing. The strength that made him famous and success depended on him carrying hundreds of strangers' grief, and a responsibility which few of his age could grasp thoroughly. Secrets in the family, public suspicion, a haunted life, and microscope. With Tyler Henry's fame, as the number of continued to climb, so did the number of questions concerning his life. See him help strangers, started to reunite with forgotten loved ones, curious about his history behind the curtain. That interest ultimately led Tyler becomes one of the more frightening revelations of about his family, a disclosure that subsequently would be a main theme of his Netflix series Life. Tyler Henry, life after death. Most of the time, Tyler thought that his own mother, Teresa, having been brought up by her biological mother, a woman who was called Stella Gordy Nestle. But with Teresa, everything changed. Chose to take a home DNA test. The results were fantastic. The woman Tyler had always assumed she was his grandmother was not genetically not linked to his mother at all. So the family started to investigate. The truth that came out was much further darker than anybody thought it could be. Stella Nestle had apparently got Teresa from a hospital shortly after her birth, falsifying paperwork and bringing her up as her own boy. For years Teresa had been raised to think Nestle was her real mom. What was even more upsetting was Nestle's record on crime. She was eventually convicted and imposed multiple life sentences in jail for the torture and death of 2 victims. The discovery stunned Tyler, and his mother has difficulty understanding how such a for so long, the secret was hidden. Teresa finally started looking for reuniting with her blood kin, members of the family she had never growing up known to. It was emotional, the reunion, but it also felt a profound feeling of loss. For years, a whole branch of her family history had been unknowingly deleted. For Tyler, the revelation raised another hard question. Though he was known as a psychic medium that allegedly could link individuals to their dead relatives, he can't get any more his answers to this mystery through own opportunities. Later he acknowledged that he had never felt any profound spiritual connection with his own biological grandmother, who had passed away years before. It was a really frustrating experience, especially because it drove him into The same spot as the folks who came looking for answers to him for help. That may never fully arrive. At the same time, Tyler's burgeoning fame him to continuous surveillance from skeptics. Psychic mediums have long been a problematic area between faith and religion. Incredulity and the popularity of only Tyler increased the discussion. Critics started analyzing his readings carefully, implying that some of his information may be explained by previous studies or psychological techniques named cold reading. Others said the consumers could have emotional reactions, be altered by the stress atmosphere of being on the television, social networking sites, and online forums. Discussions often questioned if his abilities being real or carefully entertained. Some critics even accused him of trading on grief for profit, saying that disadvantaged people were more inclined to believe astonishing claims when you're dealing with loss. Tyler never disputed that skepticism was ineluctable. In reality, he frequently said he was expecting criticism when he hit the public first spotlight. What did surprise him, though, was how persistent, how personal that critique may be. Every public show, every reading, and all forecast was analyzed by viewers attempting to discern if he was true in spite of the dispute. Tyler kept doing readings and building his career, but a mix of familial disclosures, public uncertainty, and the sentiment his work's weight was slowly increasing. Pressure on the back door. And just as he was learning how to maneuver that spotlight, another a challenge appeared. One that menaced not his career but his life itself. The diseases that almost finished everything. The public often focused on Tyler Henry as a rising television star. Extremely few individuals knew how frail his wellness had been from the beginning of his life. Tyler was born early, and physicians learned he had a brain cyst that would later lead to significant medical problems. At first, the situation looked tolerable, but as he aged, it was getting more and more risky. Tyler started a bit after he turned 18. Had awful headaches that seemed like nothing he'd ever felt before. The agony was so sharp he ultimately told his mother that he thought something was drastically wrong in his head. Doctors soon confirmed the scary diagnosis. The cyst he'd been born with had been, i.e., hydrocephalus produced by fluid growing up in his brain and building harmful pressure. If it is not treated promptly, would be fatal in such a state. Tyler was rushed into emergency brain surgery. For such a young person, it was a terrible experience. His career was just getting underway, and then he encountered a medical emergency that might have ended it all before it got going. Fortunately, the operation succeeded, and Tyler bounced back quicker than the doctors originally expected. But experience left him with the grim knowledge he might never be perfectly steady. Unfortunately, the medical scares did nowhere close here. Years later, when preparing for public appearances and kept on building his mid-career, Tyler had one more dangerous health crisis. Just before the worldwide epidemic had collapsed began, he suddenly lung. The incident occurred without notice and had him put through an emergency therapy. Again, doctors found major air leaks inside His lungs that made it so very hard to pump up again. He had spent weeks of hospital recovery. A single point, Tyler later conceded that another death-like sensation was felt like meat. He thought he had an early case of COVID. May have played a role in the damage caused his lungs, and the exact cause of which was never completely confirmed. One thing was certain, but that his body had been pushed to the max for a career focused live shows and frequent touring, emotionally exhausting the reading. A health emergency pushed Tyler to face a harsh truth. His fame was founded on the job that also physically and mentally tiring. Even after recovery, the challenges continued. Years later, physicians found still more. Another malignant disease, a tumor in the center of his brain. Again, Tyler had to have his brain surgery. By this moment he had already various operations concerning experienced. Then the condition he was born into. While he stayed positive and assured his admirers that he is going to be many procedures, which were needed to recover. As a reminder that his life had always been lived on the edge of serious medical danger. The health problems also affected his professional career. Some live shows and tours had to be put off while he'd recovered, to the dismay of fans who had months or years waiting for a chance to see him face to face. But those who knew him well knew that continue to work at the same pace could be hazardous. But despite it all, Tyler went on. Was on stage again. He frequently explained helping people get back with lost loved ones made him feel that purpose strong enough to conquer the worry of another health emergency. At one point, he even conceded that live readings might place his health was in jeopardy, but he kept going them, for he thought the work mattered. Tyler Henry's narrative, to outsiders, so often appears as a story of incredible success. A youth with special powers becomes a television star and makes a profession of helping people achieve closure. However, when you look at the big picture, the childish feeling that began everything, the bullying and solitude of his teenage years, the death of the dark family, someone he cared for, secrets, the unrelenting public skepticism, and the sequence of medical emergencies that threaten life. The narrative is something lot greater, difficult, behind the soft voice and the whole silent notepad of has a man mysterious scribbles is lived a good deal of his time dealing with tragedy, uncertainty, and the burden of other people's sadness. And maybe it is why so many individuals keep on listening to him. In the role of the messenger, spent most of from the other side. His own life learning how to live with loss. Tyler Henry's tale is a challenging question. If you knew things regarding life and death that most people, if you saw it, would you take it for a gift? Or a weight? Let us know what you think in the comments underneath. And if you like this story, don't forget to like the video and comment down below if you want to see more. Sign up for more deep dives on the interesting secret public lifestyles.